Today on the show, tight ends are terrible. The Chiefs are awesome. They whooped the Bucks last night. What's going on in the backfield for the Broncos? Who do we like going forward? How much do we like Melvin Gordon? How much do we like Mike Boone? And more. This is Beyond the Box Score. Simple stats from one advanced person and two simple people. I'm Adam Azer with some mystery. I don't know who I'm talking about. With Dan Schneier and Jacob Gibbs. You can follow Jacob at JA_Gibbs_23. And Dan Schneier is at Dan Schneier NFL. A little presumptuous to think that you are like the Dan Schneier of the NFL. It's just, I don't know, it's braggadocious. But anyway, happy Monday to you guys. Jacob, I know, I want you to clarify what you meant last week, but also I know you watched that game last night and you must have been very happy. Chiefs fan, 41-31 win.
Yeah, I watched that game. That was a great one. And I do watch, as many games as I realistically can. I'm just also spending so much time analyzing data and producing content and everything that for me personally, it is destructive to try to make myself watch every single game. It's something I've done in the past, and I get super burned out, and then I don't even want to think about football because it's too much. I'm doing like 80 to 100 hours of work every week if I'm watching every single game, and it's just way too much for any human to do and do it efficiently and productively, at least for me. So yeah, I understand why people heard that and are like, this analyst doesn't even watch the games. Like, what is he doing? He's just talking. And I get it. I didn't mean to offend. I should have been more clear. And Jacob, I like football. Okay. I like my job. I like watching the games.
And you're damn good at it because we need the analytics too. We need the advanced stats. Take a look at Jacob's Twitter page from today. It's unloading stats on us, a lot of which we'll discuss today. But I will say this, Adam, before you introduce me, it's a little more presumptuous of you to have Adam Azer as your only Twitter handle when my handle leads people to believe, okay, I'm going to come here, I'm going to get NFL-related content. When they go to yours, what are they expecting? Crappy takes on Oreos, the discussion that you think the morning time is 11, you think it's afternoon and 11:28 a.m., things of that nature. So maybe just be Adam Azer it should be just at Adam Azer random. And then that's what
it was even more presumptuous of you to think that I was going to introduce you. But that is Dan Schneier. And we're going to have one more person joining us later today, and his name is Richard Vincent. He made a big donation to St. Jude, and he won a guest spot on our show, and he's going to come talk tight ends with us a little bit later. Our 5 big topics today, Kyle Pitts and more broadly the state of the tight end position, Melvin Gordon and Mike Boone and the state of the Broncos backfield, buy low and sell high guys, week 4 running back surge. There were 6 running backs who scored 25 or more points in PPR in week 4. That was as many as we had in the first 3 weeks combined. So week 4 running back production was great. And we'll talk about the rookie wide receivers as Garrett Wilson had a down day. But Drake London, a bit of a down day, but still good stuff from Olave, Romeo Dobbs, encouraging stuff. Dotson, we'll talk about those guys. Let's start though with Kansas City 41 and Tampa Bay 31, and the Chiefs. They recovered a fumbled kickoff on the opening play of the game and really never looked back. They had the ball for 38 minutes and 38 seconds, so they dominated time of possession. And Dan, what were your major fantasy takeaways from Kansas City 41, Tampa Bay 31?
The biggest takeaway by far for me in this game was we finally saw the emergence of Rachaad White in a role that some were expecting for him before the season. Others are like, he's never going to play with Tom Brady. He's got to have somebody he trusts back there. And then he fumbles on the kickoff, the opening kickoff, and still gets this kind of role, which says a lot about what the coaches envisioned for him before that fumble and in general for him. He ended up with a 50% rushing snap share. These are all stats according to Jacob Gibbs that I'm pulling up. Like I mentioned, we'll be referencing a lot of this dude's advanced stats, despite the fact that he doesn't always watch Sunday Night Football on the show. He had a 50% red zone snap rate, which I thought was even more important. And he actually ran just 8 fewer routes than Leonard Fournette. And that's really where the value had been coming from Fournette. The running game is not really going anywhere with their current state of the offensive line. But he is a talented back who looked really good on film as far as creating forced missed tackles and creating yards after contact. Now, if he's actually getting the snaps in this offense, an offense that I think will improve, maybe it won't get to the level of last year, but it will certainly improve. That's something to keep an eye on. So that was by far and away my biggest takeaway.
But yeah, and they barely ran the ball. They ran the ball 6 times. It's one of the lowest times a team has ever run the ball in football history. And they also had a game maybe last year or 2 years ago where they ran like 5 times. And White had 3, Fournette had 3. Fournette played 7 third down snaps. White played 3. I mean, obviously, this doesn't make Rachaad White fantasy relevant as a starter or anything, but does it hurt Leonard Fournette, Dan? I'll follow up with that. I mean, you could sit here and say, okay, Fournette barely got any work. He did catch a touchdown, though. Maybe you could throw a buy low tag on him or something like that, but not if you think Rachaad White's going to do anything meaningful to Leonard Fournette's role. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it definitely hurts Leonard Fournette's value the rest of the way, for me at least, because this was somebody before we talked about on the mailbag, maybe looking at him as a buy low. That was when we saw him getting, the insane snap shares and getting, like you said, all of the red zone work, all the receiving work. If he's going to be in any, and I'm not saying this will be a split, but if he's going to be in anything that resembles anywhere close to the shares that we just went over, then that's a big, big knock on Leonard Fournette, especially right now with a run game that's not really generating much before contact for these backs. So it really is up to him to have that kind of pure workhorse role, I think, for Leonard Fournette to be an actual someone with RB1 upside.
All right, I'll wrap up my thoughts on the Bucs here, and then we'll go over to Jacob with his thoughts on the Chiefs. And Jacob, you can chime in on anything else you want. But Brady, I think, is going to be awesome. All he needs is Evans and Godwin. As long as he has them, I think he's going to be good. I'm pretty much done with Julio Jones. I could see him playing more as he gets healthier, but I don't know what to expect at this point, nor do I expect him to stay healthy necessarily. So I think Julio Jones, if you're 3-1 or 4-0, you don't have to drop him, but you certainly can. If you're 2-2 or worse, you probably are wasting a roster spot on Julio Jones, is 71% rostered. Jacob can talk about Cade Otton, who played a big role after Cameron Brate went out. But basically, I think Fournette's still a must-start guy. Maybe he's reduced a little bit, but he's still a must-start. And so are Brady and Evans and Godwin. Jacob, thoughts on the Chiefs or any Bucs leftovers?
Yeah, so you mentioned Cade Otton, third-round rookie tight end for the Bucs. Showed a lot of chemistry with Trask this preseason, and just there was a lot of positive news on his relationship with Brady building up to the season, which is surprising for a rookie tight end. And we saw it come to fruition here. Cameron Brate had a second-quarter concussion, and Cade Otton ran around on 25 of 28 dropbacks following that concussion. So, he ran around 25 of 28 dropbacks. I think Chris Godwin had 25 routes, and Mike Evans had 26 routes. So he's up there with the leaders on the team in routes run, and just that opportunity is exciting in this offense for sure. Nothing else on the Bucs. On the Chiefs, the only thing I would mention is that Sky Moore got a little bit more involved. We really haven't seen him play hardly at all. I think he had a route involvement rate below 10% through the first 3 games, and that was at 26% in week 4. So that's exciting. Their receivers really have not shown much, and it seems like they might want to get the rookie going a little bit. Another thing, this is just something I've noticed on Travis Kelce. I look at first down data a lot, and Travis Kelce has one of the lowest first down target per route run rates in the NFL, which is really strange, and I don't think is something that's going to continue, but it does at least maybe point towards the fact that the Chiefs aren't going out of their way to get Kelce way more involved with Tyreek Hill gone. We have a month worth of data now, and his role hasn't necessarily changed in a big way. They're just taking what's there. And I think defenses are doing a lot to take away Travis Kelce. The other thing is
he's still the number 1 tight end, though, by the way.
Mark Andrews is the number 1 tight end. It was one bad week for Mark Andrews, but he's the number 1 tight end last year. He's the number 1 tight end this year.
Well, but I'm telling you, the points right now are Travis Kelce over Mark Andrews.
Yeah, I know.
And by the way, they have the same amount of targets and catches, basically. It's very close. And Travis Kelce has 62 more yards. I don't know if what you think about that. And he gets all the end zone and green zone targets on the Chiefs too.
Yeah, no, I'm not worried about Kelce. I think this kind of lowers the ceiling. A lot of people were expecting him to take a big step forward with Tyreek out, and that's not what his splits before the season suggested, and that's not what we've seen so far.
We got to talk about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, guys. He was starting in 60% of leagues. I know we didn't love him on the podcast. He ends up with 19 carries for 92 yards and a touchdown. He had 9 of those carries in the fourth quarter after the Chiefs took a 17-point lead. So he was definitely killing the clock. Was certainly splitting with Pacheco. McKinnon was in near the goal line a little bit. McKinnon only had 2 touches. But Clyde with another huge game. I think he's RB4. He's top 5 running back for sure.
RB4, yeah.
I mean, is he still a sell high? What's the deal here with Clyde, Jacob?
Yeah, I would sell him for sure. There's tons of stats floating around the Twitterverse that just point towards how much of an outlier this has been. The usage really hasn't improved at all. I think we've highlighted each week. He doesn't have the passing down role. He's seeing some targets and finding the end zone on them, but like it's not like he's getting a ton of targets, and he definitely doesn't have the routes run. And yeah, now he's splitting some early down work with Pacheco, who they seem to, be slowly getting more and more involved. Yeah, I don't think his value is going to be any higher than it is right now. Maybe he'll keep scoring 2 touchdowns every week, but like in terms of where his perceived value is, this is probably the peak.
Would you rather have Clyde or Josh Jacobs coming off a huge game?
I think the usage points towards Josh Jacobs. What we saw from Jacobs this week was extremely exciting. I think the perceived value is probably higher on Clyde, though, right? Like that's a really good question. I think I personally would rather have Jacobs.
Dan?
So I would rather have Clyde, and my thought on Clyde is this. Okay, so throughout his career until this point, he's been incredibly unlucky when it comes to the touchdowns. This year, he's been incredibly lucky when it comes to the touchdowns. And in fantasy, one of the safest bets you can make is selling on players who are scoring touchdowns at a rate that can't be sustainable. But at the same time, part of why we bought into Clyde Edwards-Helaire from the start when he was drafted by the Chiefs is that he was going to be within this offense and that he was going to get a lot of opportunities. And yes, we saw Jerick McKinnon get a red zone touch or a red zone target, whatever it was this week. But if you watch the Chiefs right now, and I'm sure Jacob can just eye test this for me and back it up by the eye test. I know he's not a huge eye test guy or a fan of the eye test, but let's just ask him. I think there's clearly 2 backs that are the best backs in this backfield right now. Jerick McKinnon looks to me washed compared to what he ever was. I don't really think he was any kind of special talent to begin with, but to me, he looks like the worst back. So at some point to me, I have a feeling that he'll be phased out of this offense, and it will be mostly Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That now that doesn't really back up, that's not backed up by the data that obviously Jacob can reference so far, but it's a matter of projection. And for me, I feel like we're getting finally what we asked for out of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the touchdowns in a high scoring offense. They will come down, but it's just a matter of if you think McKinnon will maintain the role that he has moving forward. I personally don't.
They've just never really shown any indication that they want Clyde in that role. They've pretty much always found a way to not give that role to him.
Yeah, that's fair.
If you just want to speculate based on talent, I guess it's possible that he could work his way into that role. And if that happens, then yeah, he would be really exciting for fantasy. Probably be a top 15 guy.
Here's a good one, I think.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me saying so. Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Melvin Gordon with Javonte out for the year.
I'll take Clyde.
Yeah, I'm also taking Clyde.
All right. Let's
but
move
the
on.
point Jacob made, let's just wrap up with the point Jacob made here is the best point. You're never going to get more value in a trade for Clyde than you are right now based on that touchdown total. So if you do want to sell high, now is the time.
All right. Make sure you go to Sportsline and check out all the great content there, including what Jacob Gibbs is offering. And there is a monthly subscription, but it's very cheap for what you're going to get on sportsline.com. You're going to get awesome gambling advice. You make that money back instantly. You get fantasy advice. There's DFS advice with the best DFS experts. Go to sportsline.com. Check it out. You're going to love it, especially if you're a gambler or you love the DFS stuff. And then we have the Fantasy Football Today DFS podcast. You can listen to that as well. So go to sportsline.com. Injuries, news, and notes. Javonte Williams is out for the season with a torn ACL. We're going to talk about that. It's one of our big topics. Cordarrelle Patterson is on IR. All right, if Tyler Algier and Caleb Huntley and Mike Boone are out there on your waiver wire, Dan, who gets the biggest bid?
Algier will get the biggest bid for me. And look, this is not a talent I loved coming out of college. I feel like he was mostly a runner who just took what was there for him, but I watched this Atlanta game. This was one of the first games I watched back this morning. And I really like some of the things that Atlanta is doing in the run game. It's a very diverse run game. And they're getting a lot of different looks there. And it's all based on, at least right now, what's going on at the quarterback situation, because there is some accounting for Mariota as a runner right now. So given what they're doing in the run game and what Algier showed, which was more than I saw on his college tape, even in just 1 week, he would be number 1 for me of that group.
All right. Traylon Burks out indefinitely with turf toe. You could certainly look for Robert Woods on the waiver wire. He's available in some leagues. Rashad Bateman has a mid-foot injury, and he missed some time in yesterday's game. They don't think it's serious. Gus Edwards is going to start practicing for the Ravens. He's eligible to come off PUP. He won't come off this week, I don't think, but he's getting back into the mix. Justice Hill does not have a long-term injury. And Jahan Dotson for Washington, he's out 1 to 2 weeks with a hamstring injury. Some of these news items are just coming across here. So just learning about Bateman and Dotson, for example. And Just learning now that Evan Neal should be fine, but Kenny Golladay, Evan Neal is the Giants' starting right tackle. Kenny Golladay does not look promising to start this week. So please, can we get Kadarius Toney or Wan'Dale Robinson on there? Please, for goodness sake. Meanwhile, Daniel Jones is day-to-day. They're hoping he can play in London against the Packers. Tua Tagovailoa out this week. So it's Teddy Bridgewater at the Jets. Might not be the worst option. We have, of course, the waiver wire show coming up on Tuesday. Sam Darnold is eligible to return, but still not close to returning. And ordinarily, I wouldn't even mention that, but they could use a new quarterback there. I don't know if Darnold's the answer, but he's not quite ready to return from his ankle injury. The Colts playing Thursday night against the Broncos. They will not have Shaquille Leonard, their starting linebacker, who barely played at all in week 4 and didn't play in any of the first 3 weeks, but superstar linebacker, tough year. He's a concussion right now. And DeForest Buckner is also a key to their run defense because this was the first week 4, they played the Titans. First week that the Colts struggled against the run. DeForest Buckner played 35% of the snaps. He's usually 70 to 80% or so. And we got to keep track on his status. He's probably going to play, but how healthy is he? Meanwhile, another team that struggled against the run for the first time was Jacksonville. And their defensive tackle, Foley Fadukasi, left with an injury. He's day-to-day. And Doug Peterson is optimistic about Zay Jones this week. All right, let's see. I've got an email of the day I want to read real quick from Chad in Oklahoma City. He says, Adam, why, oh, why do you hate fantasy football commissioners and also integrity? I hate integrity, in case you haven't heard. My head almost exploded as I listened to you whine like a child on behalf of the sleeping Camara Brigade during your week 4 recap. Let me get this straight. You expect me, a fantasy commissioner, to judge the internet of, I think that meant to be intent, to judge the intent of league managers X minutes, hours, or days after they straight up neglected to update their lineups. And I'm supposed to do that on the honor system for everyone? Because I'd have to, you know. No, absolutely not. Outside of known website issues that physically prevented them from setting a lineup, never. If you don't update your lineup, you live with the results, always. That is fantasy blanking football. In 12 years as a commish of my fantasy football league, not one manager has ever been so lazy or self-involved to ask me to do something like this. Blah, 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 blah. This is fantasy sports, not jacks. I'm a commissioner, not a babysitter. Just take all your Camaro whining and ball it up into some ugly participation trophy that will never, ever be allowed in one of my leagues. Grow up, Adam.
Wow.
So I was giving a little bit of leeway to the managers who woke up and were shocked that Alvin Kamara did not play. And I thought maybe it'd be okay to allow them to make a swap. But I guess I'm just a big, stupid baby. And I like participation trophies, Dad. What can I tell you?
I could tell you that I don't know what people who are playing in leagues that, you know, what people who live on the West Coast were supposed to do. Were they expected to get up at 5 a.m. to check in actives for this game when all week the expectation was that Camaro was going to play? And I just don't understand, like, or were they supposed to give it at 5:45, give it a little, still at half? Like, what is the point? Like, what are we doing here? Do we want, I just don't understand. We had this whole debate in my main home league because the same thing happened to one of our managers. And yes, he was on East Coast time, but he has a newborn baby and like checked his lineup about 30 minutes before inactives and saw everything was good and then like spent time with his baby. Like, I just like, do we want zeros in lineups? That's the thing I don't understand about this. It's like, I just don't like the idea of like any league that has a zero in a lineup. I'm that commish that texts people and some of my other friends get mad, but when there's an inactive in the lineup or an injury in the lineup still and it's Sunday, I text that owner and I'm like, hey man, you gotta move this player out. Even if it's against me, I do it. And it's just like, I don't get why we want zeros in the lineups. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Jacob, what's your take on this? And man, I have such a tough decision to make in the podcast league because someone had an illegal lineup and he's asking me to fix it for him and he's going to win. He might not win.
What was the illegal about it?
It was entirely illegal. First of all, I don't know what happened. He has too many guys on his team, one too many players on his team.
Okay.
And he said he went to bed and he set his lineup as follows. And he told me his lineup. And then he checked the score this afternoon and he sees he has an illegal lineup with only 3 random players on the bench. And he had like 2 or 3 he had 2 quarterbacks. He had 4 running backs, stuff like that. God. He was just completely wrong. But I mean, this is a fun league. It's not even for money. He made a donation to St. Jude to get in the league. But he's probably going to win. I don't know what to do. I have been so stressed about it. I've been ignoring the email, and I have to think of I have to make a decision today. Jacob, help us out here. What should we do?
I'm fine letting people off the hook on this, honestly, unless it's like a really serious high dollar money buying type of league. But yeah, you guys are big babies. You need to grow up.
I just don't like. Why do people want to like technicality win? Like, oh, you didn't check your lineup at 5:33 a.m. West Coast time. I'm sorry, Mr. California. You get a fat 0 out of Kamara. Like, obviously, the intention of the owner is never to start. The manager is never to start a 0 in the lineup. Why? Like, I just don't get it.
The Kamara thing is much more understandable than this guy who just didn't check his lineup until midday.
Yeah, that's a problem.
He said it was fine when he said it when he went to bed. So I don't know. I'm one thing I might do is say, all right, listen, I'm going to give you the points for a tiebreaker purpose. I'm not going to give you a 0, but but I'm giving you a loss no matter what. I might do that. But at some point, like, I'm the commissioner and they're all just going to have to deal with it. And I'm going to have to announce it to the league and set a precedent. And I think that's what I'm going to do. Is I'm just going to be like, look, unless it's a Kamara type situation with a London game and you're not awake, then if you don't check your lineup at 1:00, there's nothing I can do for you. And I also don't believe his excuse that like the app screwed up, because that doesn't happen.
Yeah, that sounds fishy.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you. Our Apple Podcast comment of the day is from Ms. Zark. And Ms. Zark says, Silence of the Lambs is a horror movie. You guys agree or disagree? You probably never have seen it, is my guess.
I've seen that movie, yes. One time.
Horror movie?
I wouldn't call it a horror movie. I call it a psychological thriller.
Right.
Yeah, all right, I agree. Not a horror movie. All right, snap shares and other stuff. What stood out to you guys when you look at some of the target shares? Snap, whatever it may be. Jacob, why don't you kick it off? What stood out to you in the snaps, whatever? I don't even know how to. It's simple person trying to come up with a name for a segment. Save me, Jacob.
Anti-fragility.
The big takeaway is definitely Breece Hall. I feel like he's maybe the most overlooked underlying data winner from week 4. So his snap rate was up to 67%, up from 41% across the first 3 weeks. His route involvement rate was 63%, up from 36%. So you're going to route on 63% of the Jets dropbacks. And that is what's key, because he really hasn't been targeted at a high rate, and he only saw 2 targets this week. So I think people might not realize how big of a change it really was. And he also saw 65% of the running back rushing attempts, up from 43%. So if that is sustainable, that's RB1 usage. To be above 60% all those rates is really, really exciting.
Yeah, he is surging right now. Antonio Gibson is fading. He played 41% of the snaps. We know Brian Robinson is coming back. Travis Etienne played 2 more snaps than James Robinson, which has happened in both of Jacksonville's losses. James Robinson has had combined 20 touches in 2 losses and a combined 45 touches in 2 wins. Their next games are against Houston, Indianapolis, and the Giants. So that could be good for James Robinson. But that's something I'm keeping an eye on here, the game script for the Jaguars running backs. There's a lot of stuff here. Dan, I'll throw it to you. Go ahead. I'm sure Jacob has like 15 other things he can contribute. Go ahead, Dan. Your turn.
I want to look at two new quarterback situations. That's what I like to look at. I think it's the most actionable advice you can have for fantasy, at least as a fantasy analyst. So I start with Kenny Pickett. Small sample size, albeit. I know that. But keep in mind, Kenny Pickett also worked throughout training camp and the preseason with a certain group of receivers. One of those before, at least early on in preseason and training camp, and really throughout, because I'm sure he ran with that team. I need to double check that. Was George Pickens, the phenom rookie receiver. Now,
phenom.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he literally, I mean, he was, I really felt like he was the best receiver prospect.
Not backing off phenom at all.
Not backing off at all. Not named Jameson Williams. He has the size. He has every trait that you could want. Now he has to put it together still. But with Kenny Pickett in week 4, and these are all, again, stats courtesy of Jacob Gibbs. Shout out to Jacob. We're lucky to have him on the show. 33% target share, 49% air yardage share. And then he totaled that, and then he put it together with a box score share, a stat line of 4 catches for 71 yards. Big things could be coming for George Pickens with Kenny Pickett at quarterback. So that's something that stands out, because there are plenty of leagues right now where managers have cut George Pickens before this week, and this could be an excellent opportunity for you to scoop someone off the wire who's not written about in every article, though hopefully he'll be in ours. But not the hot name of the week, but I like him a lot. The other thing was what's going to happen with the Jets situation with Zach Wilson making his debut. I wanted to see what happened there. And obviously, as I kind of predicted and expected when we talked about start sits this week, it wasn't great for Garrett Wilson. And Wilson is a phenomenal player, probably the best receiver on that team, and he did run a good percentage of routes. I think Jared Smola put out that he had 86% route rate. Elijah Moore 91%, Corey Davis 73%. But as far as the targets went, it wasn't what we were expecting. It wasn't what we were hoping for. And now we have 129 route sample size that Jacob pointed out as well that I'm looking at, where 31 targets for Corey Davis, 21 for Elijah Moore. This is not. I feel like with Wilson in now, we're going to get a more diversified target share there with the Jets. And even, as Jacob mentioned, Breece Hall could still play a factor there. So I feel like the days of Garrett Wilson being a lock and load, just throw him in your starting lineup like he was those first 3 weeks might be over.
The most exciting quarterback in football is Zach Wilson. Every time he throws, there are so many outcomes that are possible. Pick six, a long touchdown, an airmail throw. I mean, it's just like, it is so fun. He is the wheel that I spin, like with all these potential outcomes. He is like just a joy to watch, as long as you're not a Jets fan. Then he's not a joy to watch. But how about this, guys? The Ezekiel Elliott had 11 more carries than Tony Pollard, played 15 more snaps than Tony Pollard. This is the percentage of 8-man fronts that they have seen this year. In week 1, Tony Pollard, this is with Dak Prescott. Tony Pollard saw eight men in the box, 17% of his carries, Zeke on 10%. Since then, weeks 2 through 4, 30% for Pollard, 28.6% for Zeke. So maybe things get easier for them when Dak Prescott comes back. Jacob, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I love that poll there. That's a good stat, and I think it might be easier for them going forward. Pollard is somebody I've been selling anywhere I can, and you probably can after this week, but after last week, you should have. His usage is just not improved at all. It's going to take an injury for Zeke, I think, for him to be consistently fantasy relevant. Yeah, otherwise, you're just banking on huge plays.
Give me something else, Jacob. Give me some more statty, sherry stuff.
Sure, yeah. Let's talk about Rondale Moore. So it wasn't a big week for Rondale Moore. I think he only had 3 catches for 11 yards. But the underlying data is pretty encouraging. He ran a route on 33 of 35 dropbacks. He was tied with Marquise Brown for the team lead on routes run. And he had a 32% air yardage share, which is something that never happens for Rondale Moore. And so what's interesting is he's actually used downfield a little bit. As a rookie, his average route depth was 0.9 yards, like not even one. In his first game this year, it was 5.9 yards. His average depth of target last year was 1.4 yards. It was 11.6 yards in week 4. They moved him out of the slot a lot, which was not something they did last year. Last year, almost 80% of his routes were in the slot. This year, or in week 4, it was 20%. That's actually something I'm a little bit worried about, but I think when DeAndre Hopkins and AJ Green are back in the mix, he'll be more in the slot. But it's just interesting that they're willing to use him that way. He was involved in 2 receiver sets a lot more than he had been as a rookie. So it's just we had heard that he's going to, kind of play the Christian Kirk role. And I was a little skeptical. I thought he was probably going to be used around the line of scrimmage because that's what we'd seen from him in college and as a rookie in a way that we really have never seen with anyone else. But at least in his first game back, he played almost every single passing play and was used downfield quite a bit.
All right. I'm going to be a wet blanket today just on a few things that you guys have said. Like Rondale Moore, he played 86% of the snaps in his first game back, and Greg Dortch played 36%. So it was more. The only problem is I don't think anyone's starting him next week against Philadelphia.
No.
And then he's got one more game at Seattle, and then Hopkins comes back. So I just feel like we may have missed our window to really be able to rely on Rondale Moore. Because then, he's fighting with Marquise Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, and Zach Ertz, and maybe AJ Green. And then with
Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah. And with Pickens, like I love Pickens. I've been calling him a phenom for a while. I don't know if anybody else is going to pick up on that, but they just have the worst schedule coming up. Yeah. Bills, Bucks, Dolphins, Eagles, then a bye, then the Saints, then the Bengals. It's just, and what Deontay Johnson's not going to disappear. So I can't imagine I'd leave him unrostered. I think you got to at least take the chance. He's 63% rostered, but this is George Pickens we're talking about here. But it's just not an ideal situation because that schedule sucks. But yeah, I mean, I get the excitement. I want to two more. Oh yeah, real quick, Jacob. I just wanted to mention two more replacement receivers. Josh Palmer. I don't know what happened. Did he get hurt?
He got hurt.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. He got hurt. He played 56% of the snaps. He was playing 91 to 93% of the snaps without Keenan Allen. So I think if Keenan Allen's out again, I don't think you should shy away from Josh Palmer. And Mac Hollins, if Hunter Renfro's out again, you don't have to shy away from him. I know he had a bad game. It was against Denver, and he played 96% of the snaps. So Palmer and Hollins are guys that probably only matter if Keenan Allen and Hunter Renfro are out, respectively, or maybe Mike Williams and Devontae Adams down the road. But just wanted to give you reasons why they had bad games. For Palmer, it was an injury. For Hollins, I'm thinking it was Denver, but he's also Mac Hollins. All right, Jacob, last thing. What do you got?
On Rondell, I just wanted to say that it's more of like a dynasty take here, that like this is a possibility now that he could be someone who is a downfield route runner. That's not something we had any idea of going into the year. So I just wanted to make that note, like for people who care about Rondell Moore at all, like this is interesting at the very least. And the last thing I'll note is Dameon Pierce ran more routes than Rex Burkhead this week. So obviously he had the big play and he continues to dominate the rushing usage, but he ran 50% of the routes. Burkhead was at 39%. In weeks 1 through 3, Dameon Pierce only ran a route on 25% of the dropbacks. So that is a notable change for sure.
But let me follow up on that, because what do you make of the fact that Pierce only played, I think, 1 snap on 3rd down?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing. Like, it's how 1st and 2nd down catches are great, but I wonder, are they less reliable than the 3rd down stuff?
Yeah, I don't want to overstate it. He didn't, play any of the 2-minute snaps or anything like that. Like, I think Burkhead is clearly, like, if it's a obvious passing down, it's probably going to be Rex Burkhead. But he's coming off the field a little bit less than he had been previously. He did have 6 catches, just more encouraging than what we'd seen in the first few weeks.
And one more roster stash note I would want to throw out there. I was really pleased to see the Seahawks scrap any ideas of like a multi-back with getting anyone but Kenneth Walker and Rashad Penny involved. This week, they obviously started to funnel that just with Walker and Penny. Walker, to me, is one of the best stashes you can have right now on your bench for a multitude of reasons, talent mostly, but also that Seahawks offensive line is gelling, especially in the run game, a lot faster than people projected. They took 2 offensive tackles, obviously, early in this draft, and both of them are playing good football right now, specifically in the run game. So I would keep an eye on Walker as a potential bench stash that could really help you down the line.
All right, by the way, Dameon Pierce, last thing on him. In the last 3 weeks, he has 49 carries. Rex Burkhead has 3. You just don't see a lot of guys dominate their backfield carries the way he is. All right, we're going to take a break here. We're running late, but we'll get to our 5 big topics when we come back on Fantasy Football Today. Welcome back, guys. I'm going to have to impose a time limit on us here. We have a guest waiting for us in the lobby. And also we have a lot to get to. So our first big topic comes from Ted S. His topic is just the Denver backfield. Now we know Javonte Williams, unfortunately, out for the season with a torn ACL. Dan, give me your take on the Denver backfield. I'm going to give you guys 3 minutes at most on each topic here. We'll go kind of quickly. Give me your take on the Broncos backfield.
Well, it's like a Tony Reale, Adam Reale type of style here around the horn. My take on this backfield is, despite what we saw this week, it is going to be Melvin Gordon's backfield. They trust him in so many more situations than Mike Boone, but it's not going to be a situation where Gordon is dominating the entire backfield. So I lean toward Gordon. Obviously, he's rostered in most leagues, but I still think Boone is worth throwing some kind of waiver claim on.
Jacob.
Yeah, I agree. It is interesting that what we saw, like with the fumbles for Melvin Gordon, Boone played 63% of the snaps after Javonte went down, ran around on 12, 17 dropbacks, only 5 routes for Melvin Gordon. So if Melvin continues to falter in this way, like they at least trust Boone in that role, which is interesting. I wouldn't have expected that type of route involvement.
Yeah. It's amazing how things change, right? If Javonte Williams had torn his ACL in week 2 and Melvin Gordon was coming off 2, solid looking games in the first 2 games of the season, we'd probably be thinking of Melvin Gordon as a clear must start, a borderline top 12 guy. But over the last 2 weeks, his yards per carry has been terrible. He had one really tough matchup. I think was that in week 3 against San Francisco. He was bad, and then he had only 3 carries yesterday. And now Melvin Gordon has 4 fumbles in 4 games.
He's been one of the worst rushers in the NFL in terms of efficiency and all of the advanced stats.
And he was really good last year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, things have changed so much from if I had just asked you either at the beginning of the season or 2 weeks ago, hey, Javante's out for the year, where's Melvin Gordon? I think the answer is a lot different right now. But I think there's a possibility that he's still going to be really, really awesome and a complete must start and a total steal for anyone who drafted him. Right? I mean, I can't rule that out.
No, it's a weird situation because it's a new coaching staff, and clearly they had like a Belichickian you fumble, you're out type of feel for it. Now I don't think that will carry over, but we'll have to see.
All right, next topic is from In Rainbows. Buy low, sell high, trade dark targets. Go in depth now that it's week 4. I mean, it's like things change so much every week. It's such a frustrating topic. It's a great topic to talk trade. I get it. But we've been telling you to trade Clyde Edwards-Helaire for how long? And we look so stupid every week. And we're still telling you to trade them. Anyway, Jacob, you have any guys that you really want to acquire or trade away?
Yeah, so like true buy lows. I noted DJ Moore, his usage was better this week. We already talked about George Pickens. Darnell Mooney finally showed some signs of life, had better usage this week, and also had the big catch. I think Michael Pittman is interesting. With Jonathan Taylor going down, this offense I would expect to be more pass heavy. And he's the clear wide receiver 1 there. He could put up some really ridiculous volume numbers. Kyle Pitts, can't quit him. The usage was not good this week, but if you can get him for really cheap, I think that the upside is worth it. Wow. There just aren't tight ends that are running downfield routes the way that he does. He just brings so much upside, even if he's only running around on 60% of the dropbacks like he is right now, which is ridiculous. Dalvin Cook, I think, is somebody you could buy low on. I saw somebody sent me a screenshot that they traded Clyde Edwards-Helaire for Dalvin Cook. If you can do that, you do that immediately. And then the last one I would mention as a clear buy low is Kyler Murray. He had 3 designed rushes in week 4. He only had 3 in the first 3 weeks. He's got a lot of his weapons coming back. Like we've talked about at length, we don't trust the offense or the coaching, but I think there are better days ahead for Kyler.
Yeah, it's interesting because he's been very good for fantasy, but I think everybody's kind of aware that the Cardinals have been a total mess. So there still might be a little perception there, a buy low perception on Kyler. I don't know that I agree with a lot of your buy lows. Obviously, I would give up CEH for Dalvin Cook, but my concern is with specifically DJ Moore and Kyle Pitts. I don't know that these offenses can support their talent. And if I'm going to buy low, I think I want to buy low on a player who's on a really good offense. Like I'd be more tempted to buy low on Gabriel Davis than DJ Moore, for example. Both of them have major concerns, but I just don't trust the Panthers. They definitely tried to get DJ Moore more involved and led to 50 yards. Kyle Pitts, man, they've thrown 38 passes in the last 2 games or something like that. That's low, but it's still always going to be low volume. So I don't know, man. Like it's got to be really low, especially with
Dan and I were talking before we got on. It's hard to find like true buy lows. So there's a lot of guys that I think are undervalued, like Drake London, even Chris Olave, Jalen Waddle, CeeDee Lamb, Breece Hall, where like they're not appropriately valued, and I would be buying them right now. But if we're looking like for truly like buy lows, these are the guys I came up with, and it's not pretty. You know, you don't want DJ Moore on your team. You don't want Darnell Mooney. I get it.
Yeah. Oh, right. Mooney was the other. I just don't trust the offense. Dan, how about you?
I went over some of the buy lows already, and Pickens and Kenneth Walker again is a huge one for me. I got a couple buy mediums. How about that? This is kind of different, but let's do it. I'm buying now on Miles Sanders, a player who I've been off on for a while, mostly because of the role that he has now within the red zone and because I'm just buying running backs behind these dominant offensive lines with massive shares, and he's one of them. Another player who kind of fits that billing, who I've never been on in my career, Adam, you're going to be stunned.
Is it Singletary?
No, Singletary. No. It's still not going to be Singletary for me. I still worry about how that's going to play out end of rest of the season. But Josh Jacobs, man, I can't believe I'm doing this to myself. But I went back, I watched that game. That was another one I watched. Jacobs starting to look a little bit more like that player that he was coming out of Bama, you know, a top 20. Daniel Jeremiah had him, I think, as a top 15 prospect overall, all things considered. He had 28 carries, 144, has played 86% of the early down snaps this season. It just isn't what the main reason for me fading him before this year is Josh McDaniels was the head coach, and Josh McDaniels does crazy things with running backs. But that's not the case right now. He's being utilized in a way we haven't really seen a Belichickian, since the days like when they had Corey Dillon over in the Patriots, utilize a running back. So he's another one who I consider potential buy high high or buy whatever you want to call these guys, buy medium right now. So if I'm looking for running back help right now, I'm really interested in Miles Sanders, and I'm interested in Josh Jacobs as well.
All right, I'll give you a couple of quarterbacks. Derek Carr and Kirk Cousins. I think they can be low-end starters with big weeks coming. You know, Kirk Cousins has thrown 38 or more pass attempts in 3 straight games. That is the first time he's done that since 2018. And they're a pass team now. I mean, that's what they pass the ball. Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison have combined for 1 carry inside the 5-yard line so far. And that'll change. I mean, they'll get a little bit more balanced in that regard, but they just throw the ball a lot. Carr is 9th in pass attempts, but he's only 3 behind Kirk Cousins, who's 5th in pass attempts. So there's a big tie, basically, right around 5th. And Carr's coming off a game against Denver. And I think Denver's pass defense is exceptional. And I think their run defense stinks, by the way. So I'd be looking at those guys if you really need a quarterback, because they're both coming off bad weeks, and better times, I think, are ahead for Cousins and Carr. Could be this week. You know, Carr's got the Chiefs. He's going to have to throw a lot. Cousins has the Bears. They're not good. All right. And Joe Mixon, I don't know if Joe Mixon is a buy low, but he's averaging 2.7 yards per carry. They still love him, and he's still going to catch so many passes because of the coverages they're seeing. Zach Taylor had just a quote about how much he trusts Joe Mixon. A.J. Dillon is a guy that I would consider. He's getting a ton of work. I think he's a better running back than what we've seen. I don't know where his explosiveness is. He's not making any big plays, but look at their next 3 games: Giants, Jets, Washington. You don't think there's going to be some opportunities for A.J. Dillon here to score some points and be good? I think there will be. All right. We got one from our guy, Robert Thomas. Week 4 running back share, running back surge, real or imagined? Any historical data? I don't know if we have anything like that, Jacob, but what do you think? In weeks, like I said, weeks 1, 2, and 3, we had 6 running backs hit the 25-point mark. We had 6 in week 4 alone in PPR. We had 10 running backs get 20 points. We had 17 in the first 3 weeks combined. So, and a lot of it were guys that we were starting. It wasn't like just random guys off the street. It was players that were actually helping us in fantasy. What do you think, Jacob?
Yeah, I've got some data on it. So in 2021, 63% of offensive touchdowns came through the air, 37% on the ground. In weeks 1 through 3, it was 68%, up from 63%, 32% on the ground, down from 37%. So it was a little high on the passing side. In week 4, we had a clear outlier, or maybe just regression from what we've seen the first 3 weeks. 53% of touchdowns came through the air, 47% came on the ground. I think that's the main culprit here. We saw people like Austin Eckler, who were huge touchdown producers and had not got in the first 3 weeks, score 3 times. I think that's really the big difference here at the running back position this week.
Okay. Dan, what do you think? You make anything of it?
I don't have any key takeaways from it. I kind of feel like Jacob nailed it. I will say this, though. Saquon Barkley right now is the RB1 overall, and he still is the lowest scoring RB1 through 4 weeks. I believe since 20.
You're such a homer. He's not even the RB1.
Oh, he's not RB1 overall? I thought I saw RB1 overall. Who's RB1 overall?
Nick Chubb is two points ahead of Saquon
Okay.
Barkley.
I guess it depends on the
And
format.
Nick Chubb has 6 catches.
I must have seen this in full PPR or half.
It is full PPR. Full PPR.
Well, I stand corrected.
It could depend on the website you're using.
Okay. Well, our website, I got to go by that, and it's Nick Chubb, so I stand corrected. And I will say this, though. It's still, I believe I saw the lowest scoring RB1 through 4 weeks since 2015. So there's still, we're still not where we need to be here with these top scoring running back, these top ranked running backs.
Wow. It was a really encouraging week, though. You've had 2 good games in a row from Derrick Henry with him catching passes, which I think is huge. You've had Eckler with the 3 touchdown game, Barkley with 31 carries, which I think is too much.
You had Zach Taylor jamming the ball to Mixon 7 times to the goal line.
Yeah, there you go. McCaffrey with 9. I love that. I love McCaffrey with 9 catches.
Yes.
It definitely seemed like Matt Rule and Ben McAdoo were listening to fantasy managers for Christian McCaffrey. All right. Anyway, let's go to Lewis for our 4th one. Big topic number 4. Rookie wide receivers have had an impact. Rate them rest of season. Will you be more bullish on rookie wide receivers in 2023? So, Dan, why don't you rate the rookie wide receivers rest of season?
So I'll start by saying no, I will not be more bullish because I'm always bullish on rookie receivers. I am a big rookie receiver drafter, so nothing will change there. They're one of the only free square edges you have left in fantasy with how much information is out there, just because no one's seen them play, so there's still uncertainty before the draft. Now, as far as rest of season goes, my number one ranked receiver rest of season is Chris Olave by far. I love what he was able to do with a backup quarterback in there and Andy Dalton. We saw a lot of other receivers who have been hot at the gates as rookies struggle a bit with quarterback change. They're not a lot of there, but Garrett Wilson didn't put up the same kind of fantasy points. And obviously now with Treylon Burks' injury, that rules him out of the running. So I would start with Olave as my one. Number two would be an interesting debate to have. I might lean toward George Pickens. Are you
saying Drake London is your three?
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed Drake London. Drake London's definitely the two. Those are the two obvious ones. The 1 and 2 are obvious. Olave, Drake London. Number 3 is
where you still sticking with Olave ahead of London?
I have Olave ahead of London rest away for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, I love what I've seen from. I mean, Olave, the air yards alone would probably put me would probably put him in the running. But the fact that he was able to do it last week, he's just clearly the key component in that game plan right now for New Orleans, and they're throwing the ball downfield a little bit more. I mean, look, Drake London's awesome, but if you have a game like you had last week where the Falcons threw the ball, how many attempts did Marcus Mariota?
17, 19.
17 or 10, I think it was either 19 or 7. I think it was 7 for 19. How can I count on Drake London as a weekly scorer? And same thing goes for Pitts if they have this style game plan, run the ball. So right now it would be those two. And then I probably put as my 3 the rest of the way, Garrett Wilson. But look, a case can be made to get on your radar. Jameson Williams, my boy.
I think a case can be made for Romeo Dobbs too.
And Romeo Dobbs, you're right. I shouldn't have even forgotten Romeo Dobbs. So there are different. Once it gets to that past the 2, I think there's a lot of arguments to be made for all the remaining rookies there in the top end there.
What do you think, Jacob?
Yeah, so I'm really excited for Chris Olave as well. We talked about last week how unprecedented the air yardage has been, and gave examples of receivers who have started off a season with the number of air yards that Chris Olave's had. They've almost all been top 15. They have all been top 15 fantasy receivers. So I think it's fair to put him as one, even though I think that shocked me. My answer was going to be clearly Drake London as number 1. Drake London has the highest target per route run rate of any wide receiver in the NFL. He has a 34% target share and a 32% air yardage share. The thing that Dan pointed out is everything I just cited is a rate stat.
Yeah.
And so if you're passing 20 times a game, it doesn't matter that much if you're drawing 34% of the targets. But I would expect just through regression alone that Atlanta is going to pass the ball more and be playing from behind more. So I still think London would be my 1. Olave would be my 2. Garrett Wilson is my 3. I mean, we have 3 rookies in the top 10 in target per route run rate right now, which is just insane. Drake London's 1st, Garrett Wilson's 9th, Chris Olave is 10th. So Wilson would be my 3, but I would not be surprised if that changes over the next couple of weeks. I'm a little bit worried about what we saw this week. Jameson Williams is 4 is interesting. I think I would actually have Dobbs and then Pickens and then Jameson Williams. But there's a lot of upside for Williams to come on and just light it on fire right away, especially if Detroit's receivers are still banged up. There was one guy I wanted to mention and I'm blanking on it. What do you think, Adam? Let me try to remember who it was.
Wandale. I think Wandale Robinson.
That's exactly right. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, somebody's going to have to catch passes for them. It's the worst receiving core in football. And I'm hoping it's Kadarius Toney, but Wandale Robinson could definitely have a role.
And he's not just somebody. He had a higher target per route run rate than Drake London last year, which Drake London had the 3rd highest of any receiver over the past 5 years. Wandale really has extremely exciting collegiate data and then was taken in the 2nd round. He could be a stud, and the situation is set up perfectly. It wouldn't surprise me at all if a month from now we're doing this discussion and Wandale is 2 or 3.
Yep.
Look out, Green Bay. Here come the 3-1 Giants. Oh, yeah. And here comes our special guest who has been waiting for so long, and I feel terrible about it. Totally my fault. I am sorry. So we had an opportunity to get on the show with a St. Jude donation, and Richard Vinson was kind enough to donate. And thank you for that, Richard, and welcome to Fantasy Football Today. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. Not a problem waiting. I've been a fan of the show for a long time. And I think the best compliment I can give to you guys is, even in years I don't have a team, I still tune in and listen to you guys just to hear the banter and the teasing and everything. And it's a great show.
Well, then you must love Dan Schneider, because that's all he does is tease.
Yeah.
Where do you live? Where are you from?
I'm outside of Los Angeles.
All right. So
Nice.
So what did you have Kamara? What happened with Kamara in your league this weekend?
I don't know. I don't have him, fortunately, so I didn't see that. But yeah, It just sounds like a mess. The London games always throw everything.
Would you have asked the commissioner for some leeway if you had Kamara and it's 6:30 in the morning, you're sleeping and he's inactive and you wake up and it's like, what the hell? And somebody said he was a game time decision. No, he was not.
Right.
This was a total shock. So Richard, would you ask for some leeway there?
Yeah, I think if I were the commissioner of the league, I think I would just go in and say, okay, if I were running the team, this is who would have been the next guy up and put him in there. Unless you get to it before the 10 o'clock game start, or for us, it's 10 o'clock.
Right. Oh, that's so weird. God, it's so weird.
Yeah.
I know you wanted to talk tight ends. So welcome to the show, and let's talk about tight ends. Our last topic was going to be about Kyle Pitts. We'll expand it to tight end. So what are your thoughts, Richard?
Well, you mentioned your stat about the running backs being the worst since 2014. I don't know if you have something similar for all the positions, because it seems like a lot of positions have been kind of rough. But the tight ends, I mean, I know at the beginning of the year there was kind of the idea that there was like a top tier, and then everyone else was just kind of a mess. But now is that top tier just Kelsey and everyone? I mean, I've got like Goddard and guys like that. Are they just all interchangeable if you don't have Kelsey?
Well, Andrews, I think it's certainly.
I feel like Andrews can still certainly qualify there, especially from a snap share standpoint, from a target share standpoint. It's a great question though. Past those two, is there anyone you can trust to be that every week difference maker? Difference maker versus every week starter is probably also up for debate.
Yeah, I mean, and you know what? Goddard is actually one of the most interesting guys because from a statistical standpoint, he is off the charts. Yards per target, yards per catch. He's had more than 60 yards in 3 of 4 games. In the one game he didn't, he left with an injury and didn't play his normal snap share. But Jalen Hurts just does not throw him the ball in or near the end zone. It's really weird. I have a stat on this. Dallas Goedert has 2 end zone targets since the start of the 2021 season. Mark Andrews has 20.
Wow.
Travis Kelce has 9. Like Hunter Henry, I think, is second on the list. But both of his end zone targets, 2 of them, and he has 5 touchdowns since the start of 2021, and 2 of them came from Gardner Minshew. If Jalen Hurts ever starts throwing the ball to Dallas Goedert near the end zone and he can score some touchdowns, he could join this group. I mean, that's how good of a player he has been, basically, but he's just missing the important targets. But Jacob, what is your take on the tight end position in general? Going into the year, it was like everybody's situation got worse except for Kelsey and Andrews. Pitt's situation got worse with the quarterback. Waller adds Devontae Adams. Kittle, we thought it was, Trey Lance. Now I guess it's the same. Goddard adds AJ Brown. But it's really played out kind of that way. Everybody sucks except for the top 2. What do you think, Jacob?
It's really rough. I think we could get a big game from Kittle tonight and feel a little bit better about him as being like the clear next 3, because right now we don't really even know who tight end 3 is. Like in fantasy, it's TJ Hawkinson so far, but that's obviously boosted by the big week with Amon-Ra St. Brown out. It's really brutal out here. I feel good if I've got like Zach Ertz, David Njoku, some of those guys that are just filling an every down role and are at least like going to get you a set amount of points each week. But you're like totally rolling the dice with some of the other guys. I would mention Pat Freiermuth continues to show really encouraging underlying data. I don't know if I trust the Steelers offense. And like you said, the upcoming schedule is brutal. But like it is exciting what we've seen from him in year 2. So like he's someone who could emerge among the group of just nothingness that we have beyond the top 2 guys.
I'm going to put
Hodgkinson. Is he like a sell high after the big week, or do you think he can?
Yeah, for sure. We didn't get to sell highs, but he was like the clear for me sell high. Like if you could trade Hawkinson for Darren Waller and something else, or like Kyle Pitts and maybe quite a bit else, like I would do that for sure.
Damn, you got a really good team, Richard. I got Richard's team up here. He's got Goddard, Lamar Jackson, Dalvin Cook, Tony Pollard, but he also has Miles Sanders and Cordero Patterson. He'll be without for 4 weeks, and Breece Hall on the bench. Dear God. Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Mike.
Hell of a team.
10-team league?
London.
10 yeah, it's a family 10 team, so it's not ultra competitive. So it's
really good.
I'm probably the only person who does any listening to anything. So it's usually pretty one-sided. But my son has a team, my wife has a team. So
I like
fun,
it.
Man, that's really fun. I think for you just stand pat with Dallas Goedert. He's been really good. Just needs to catch the touchdowns. And let me ask Dan and Jacob here. Zach Ertz, He's a top 5 tight end right now. When Hopkins comes back, he's still a must-start tight end.
I think given the state of the position he is.
Yeah,
but,
I was going to say must start given the state of position. It was probably yes, because you're throwing him in there and he has a good chance anyone else to catch a touchdown that week. But it definitely deflates his value.
All right, I'll ask Richard this first, then you guys can answer. If you're redrafting again today, how many players go ahead of Kelsey or Andrews, whoever your favorite tight end is?
Mm-hmm.
How many players go ahead?
At this point, watching Kelsey, on Sunday, it's just, I don't know. I mean, so many of the top running backs have been bad. The top wide receivers. I mean, he's got to be one of the highest. It's hard, it's hard to believe it, but I don't know. It's hard to say who'd go above him. Like, do I trust the Giants running game that much? Like, I don't know.
I agree. The only no-brainer to me is Kupp. Like that's the only absolute no-brainer. And then there are plenty of arguments, but guys like Derrick Henry and Joe Mixon and Dalvin Cook, I think I'd take Kelsey over them guys. I don't know how you feel about it.
I mean, yeah, you're talking to me, who's one of the biggest believers in the tight end weekly advantage. When you have guys like even Goddard there, who's somebody we're starting every week, and he can put together a 2-point week at any point, right? And that goes for a lot of these guys.
It just happened to Mark Andrews for the record. He had 3 points.
Well,
it did.
I've been happy with Goddard, and I think Kelsey's averaging twice as many points as he is.
Right.
It's like it's not close.
Good point. Yeah, I think they're probably top 8 picks at worst.
Yeah,
for sure.
We'll have the same argument next year.
Yeah. I tweeted this last week. It's PPR points over the past calendar year, and we've got 460 for Cooper Kupp, and then 396 for Jonathan Taylor.
Wow.
And then 350 to 367. There's a group of like 6 guys, which is including Mark Andrews. And then there's a huge drop off, 24% to the next tight end, and then 40% behind Mark Andrews is tight end 3 during that time. And so the case I made is like, behind Kupp is Andrews truly the most valuable player in fantasy. He didn't look like it this week. Obviously, he had a down week, and Kelsey has caught up with him. That discrepancy probably isn't 24% anymore. It's probably like 18 or something. But like the fact that he's producing as high as Austin Eckler, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, guys like that over the past calendar year, and he gives you positional advantage. Like I think you legitimately could make the case that he's like a top 5 fantasy asset. Both the tight ends, really. I
would just say one thing. Last week was the first week in that stretch that Mark Andrews has played with a healthy J.K. Dobbins. I mean, it was technically the second week, but Dobbins only had 9 touches in week 3. He had 17 touches in week 4. He scored 2 touchdowns. So that's just the only thing I want to see is, do they get back to running the ball a little bit more? Do they get, more balanced? And does that pull Kelsey ahead of Andrews? Because you're obviously, Jacob, like totally Andrews over Kelsey.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we've seen for quite a while now, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm Kelsey over Andrews, but love them both. Richard, I'm sorry for making you wait. Is there anything else you'd like to chat about before you leave?
Sure. I guess the only thing I'll say is, I love the Adam Azer stats. I know you get a lot of grief for them on the show, but I'll say, I don't get to see every game, and I certainly don't remember every game I see. And I don't always agree with the Azer stat, but you pointed out like, oh, this guy last year, he missed 2 games with an injury, or his quarterback was hurt and he played in a blizzard and whatever else. I don't necessarily need to agree with it, but at least you remind me. I go, oh, okay, maybe, I can think about it a little bit and decide, so I love the Azer stats.
That's just an Azer stat.
That's the point, is to put a little context on it, not to make a definitive statement. Yeah. One of the Azer stats that's killing me right now is Gabe Davis without Emmanuel Sanders last year. All the involvement that he had and how good he was without Emmanuel Sanders last year. And it's just not carrying over. And Josh Allen is not throwing the ball downfield, which is welcome to the NFL right now, but hurting Gabe Davis, obviously. But Richard, thank you. I mean, that's a great way to end the show. Complimenting an Azer stat. That is really terrific. Thank you very much to Richard Vincent, to Jacob Gibbs, to Dan Schneier, all of you for watching and listening. Thomas Schaefer, our producer. We will talk to you tomorrow with the waiver wire on Fantasy Football Today.